Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Frank Rewold, as you heard, and I was born and raised in Rochester, so I'm going to do a little history of Frank Rewold Sons today. It's probably going to be a little bit different than what you may expect or what you've heard of, because I'm going to put a little twist in it that kind of keeps it fun and interesting. Jeff told me I had to keep it PG, so I'll try to do that. And I am going to do a little interactive stuff in a little bit with you to have a little bit of fun. So we'll go from there. Now, how do I get that to move? Okay, so as I'm going to jump around a little bit here, but our company is a construction company. We were formed at Oakland University, Meadowbrook Hall, 101 years ago. This is a picture of us out there. So I just hit. This is a picture of the original Frank Rewold. Yes, I'm not the original. I'm not that old. So that's Frank Rewold right there. So I'm told that would be my grandfather, and I think behind him we think is his father. We're not sure of that, but that's a picture out at Meadowbrook Hall. Oh, I don't know when that was taken, but a long time ago. It's a picture of Matilda Dodge, who my grandfather started our business with out there. And that's an aerial of Meadowbrook, kind of the way it was way back. I think that front barn is, Jeff, is that Gustafson? Is that what it used to be called? Yeah, so I think the earliest that I remember going out with my grandfather was in this building, which back when I went out there with him was actually a horse barn, believe it or not. And I remember that because when you're 5 or 6 or 7 years old and you're going to see horses, I thought it was pretty cool. So he took me out there quite a bit. That's a picture of my dad, Roy, who would be Frank's son. He's second generation. That's blurry. We have a better one here. And I think he's working on one of the barns at Oakland University in that particular picture, somewhere around 1945. Just a little bit, you probably knew my dad. Many of you remember him, but he was born and raised in Rochester as well. He was on the fire department. He was on the city council. He was the first mayor of Rochester. He, in the fire department, was involved. They had a real serious fire at what was called, well, I call it Cooper's Arm, Roger Knapp's place, but it was actually something before that. They had a really bad fire there. He was burned severely, almost died way back in the day. Kind of an interesting fact. So this is the president's house at Oakland University we built in 1953. It's a round house, which was pretty cool. It still exists today. We've remodeled a couple times. I think they remodeled it again. I think the president still lives there. Is that right, Jeff? Yeah. I'm going to guess Albert Kahn, but it's a guess. Smith Hinchman Grills. That's a picture of my dad, 1960-ish. I think just interesting fact, and some of you that were here may know, and I know just because I can tell who's standing next to him, was John Dahlman, if you remember that name. John was about 6'8" or 6'10", or. And just as another, just kind of fun stories, I'm going to throw a lot of different stuff in today, but I'm told back in the day that my dad, John Dahlman, and Gene Byers rode horses through what used to be Bee's Bar. Before that was called the Red Knapp's, wasn't it, Roger? Do you know if that story's true? Were you involved in that story? But John and my dad didn't, but they rode horses through the bar. Am I getting you in trouble today, Roger? All right, just checking. 1980, I graduated from college, came in as third generation. I actually started working in 1972 for Rewold in junior high. I was after school, weekends, holidays. If there was a free second, my dad had me working. Actually, my grandpa before that, as I said, he used to pick me up in his pickup truck, and I was mowing all the lawns back in early 60s, but that's 1980. Our original office was on Grigg Street down by Hallback Baseball Field, if you remember that. We then moved over to 150 Elizabeth, and then we moved across the street to 333 2nd Street, which we just moved out of and moved into our new office in October to celebrate our 100-year anniversary, which was really cool. We also had Vice President Pence flew in for our opening, actually a month or two before our opening, which we thought was pretty cool. Anytime you have a sitting Vice President of the United States come in and wants to walk through your building, it was pretty cool. He was actually a really, really nice guy. One of the big projects that turned our company around, in my opinion, was in 1994. We were hired by Bill Davison, who then owned the Palace, the Pistons. Back then it was called Pine Knob. And he hired us to renovate the entire facility, tons of additions we put on that aren't even shown here. And he hired us in, I think in January, and the work had to be done in May for the opening act, which is fairly typical how the Pistons worked fast. So we took that project on, which is a stretch for us, to be quite honest, and I hate to be blocking you, sir. But that was a really fun project. It was really cool. It had a lot of high profile, very challenging. We were able to pull that off for Eddie Money, who I think opens up the place every single year. But so that kind of started us on our way to the next level of a small mom and pop company to a small size commercial contractor. 1998, my son, Jason, in that picture, my older son got involved. He would be the 4th generation. My daughter also works with me. She works at the Royal Park Hotel in Rochester. And my youngest son just graduated from Michigan State last year, and he's now working with me. So I've got all 3 of my kids, 4th generation, working for us, which is pretty cool. And you're going to hear a little story about that in the second part of what I talk about. So in 2000, another cool thing we did is back in the day, they were going to tear the Rochester Mills down. And there was a developer that was going to come in and put in some what I'm going to call low-income apartments. There was going to be a lot of problems with it, in our opinion. My dad, I remember Bill Mitzelfield got involved, some other people, because it was, again, in our opinion, it was going to be a really bad thing for Rochester. It was going to be heavily developed, heavily overbuilt, very little parking, very poor quality. And so we got involved, and like my dad would normally do, the answer was we bought it. So we bought the mill building. It was vacant. ITT had moved out, and we remodeled it. At the same time, they had contaminated the site very badly. It was what was called a brownfield site because they had left it in horrible condition. So we bought it. This is inside the mill building. We actually restored it back to the exact way that it was built originally. John DeZerman was involved and helped us with that. And we actually won a national award, a National Historic Award, which is very difficult to do in construction. And today it still sits that way and is occupied. The Rochester Mills Brew Pub is in there and a few other places. Another fun job we did, we remodeled Oakland Hills Country Club in 2002, and the interesting part of this job was they hired us again in about August. And this was a huge job. We tore every piece of that building down. The only reason we left it is if we tore it all down, it wouldn't have matched code. We would have had to do some different things. So we literally tore it down to a few studs and then rebuilt it. And that had to be done. They had the Ryder Cup coming in. If you remember, the Ryder Cup was played back then. So we finished that and opened it as well. 2004, we built the Royal Park Hotel in Rochester. Also had President Bush at the time come in and visit us there, which was kind of cool. Again, if you can take the politics out of it, anytime any president wants to come into one of our job sites, he's welcome to. By the way, I see my mom came in late. You missed the best part. Oh, well. Anyways, my mom, Beverly Rewold, Roy's wife, she will be 90 this year. So in 2009, I became CEO of the company, chairman of the board. Roy was chairman of the board, I'm sorry. 2013, that's Sean on the far right, graduated from Michigan State. That's actually at Leader Dog, which is another cool project we've done. Lots of cool projects around. You know, I tell people how lucky we are in Rochester with some of the things we have, and we've been lucky enough to be involved in many of them, so I'm just going to name some off to give you an idea. So we did the Rochester Hills Public Library, which to me is one of the coolest libraries in the state. We're lucky to have that. We did OPC, same thing. People come in, I don't know if you know this, but people come from all over the United States to look at that building to steal ideas to take back to their town to do it. We did the Onyx Ice Arena, which is one of the nicest private ice rinks in the state, and I know that because I've coached, played, and traveled all over. We have Meadowbrook Hall, we have Oakland University, which we've worked a lot at. We have Rochester College, another hidden gem. We have you know, a great hospital here, Crittenton Ascension, and we have theaters here, and just you know, we're very blessed, I think, of what we have in this area, and sometimes we dwell on the negative too much and need to think about all the good things that we've got. 2017, my son Jason became vice president. This is him doing a speech. We're doing a project right now for the Fords. It's a historic building we're doing in Grosse Pointe. I'm trying to think of her first name, Mrs. Ford, but Eleanor Ford. So we're doing the Ford House in Grosse Pointe right now, and that's Jason speaking down there. It's a really cool project as well. This is the new dorm we just finished at Oakland University. If you haven't been out there, it's pretty spectacular. This is actually on the back side, or the low side, I should say. If you go on the other side, it actually falls down. It's 2 more stories. It's 750 beds with the full cafeteria. That opened on time and under budget in August of last year. And we did the one before that as well. So Oakland's starting to now get a lot of full-time housing, which I think is really important for them to move up the ladder into the major universities, which I think they're doing. So again, lucky to have them in this area. So that's kind of a real brief, quick history of what we're doing. What I thought I'd do is kind of run you through some things about how we run our company and why I think that we've gotten to this point. So I'm just going to go back over a couple things just because it's important. So we are a 101-year-old, 4th generation company. Very, very rare that any companies get past the 2nd generation. That the odds of that are in the single digits. When you get into 3 and 4, they become 1 and 2% success probabilities. So today I'm going to just tell you a couple things that we do. They're a little bit different, and we'll have a little bit of fun with that. And then at the end we can have some questions and answers. So one of the things that we're huge on is relationships. To me, it's all about relationships. Family, coworkers, customers, doesn't matter to me. If you don't have a relationship, you don't have anything. Most of our work at Rewold Sons is repeat business, probably 85% of it. Let me say that again, probably 85% repeat business. I actually still have customers that call me and we do work on a handshake, no contract, which makes my attorneys and accountants go wild, but you know, you gotta live a little bit, right? we've done, I don't know how many jobs for Oakland University. I would say 100. I mean, who knows? From big to small to everything. So to me, it's all about relationships and teamwork and hiring. So I'll tell you a couple funny stories about how we hire. And I'll tell you a couple facts before then, not meant to be bragging, but I want you to understand after I tell you what we do, because you're going to, if my HR person was here, she'd say, you can't say that. I'd say, why? It's what we do. I'm going to say it. So we have 65 employees at Rewold Sons, and 230 we own the Royal Park Hotel. At Rewold Sons, we have 14 father-son, father-daughter, mother-daughter combinations. So almost half our workforce is multi-generation. The average length of employment at our office is 17 years, average. It used to be higher, but we've hired a lot of young people because we've grown. I've got several people that have been with us 40 years, many in the 30s, lots in the 20s. I see people here that I've hired their kids. Roger Knapp's son used to work for us back in the day. He's now owns a restaurant in Oxford, which I'm taking credit for helping him do that somehow. So when we hire someone, I meet everybody we hire before we finally hire them. And I ask everybody that I hire 3 questions before I hire them. Now keep in mind, they've been through my HR division and they've been through all the legal stuff, so all the questions have been all asked. So just a guess, and if you know the answer to this, because some of you may have heard this story because I've told it many times, so you can't cheat on this test. But what do you think would be a question I would ask someone before I hire them? Give me a guess. Think outside the box. Think way outside the box.
What tool can't you live without?
I'm sorry?
What tool can you not live without?
No. Not close. Think something else. Somebody guess something way outside the box. Think about relationships.
How long have you lived in the area?
It's already been asked before they get to me. But I talk about, that's a good point. Always I talk about their family before I hire them. But again, most of that I already know. Sometimes I ask them how old they are. My HR girl says, you can't say that. I said, why? Close. You're getting closer.
What can you bring to this?
Close. What do you like to do? So one of the things I ask them, do you play hockey? True story. Now you can change that to anything you want, but there's a reason why I say, do you play hockey? This is a quote from Ted Lindsay, who just passed away the other day, who is a really good family friend of ours. And this says, the alumni is everything I love about the game of hockey. It's hard work, commitment, teamwork, and thinking of someone else other than yourself. So, and I'm a hockey player. Some of you know that. I grew up, really played all sports. But why would I ask someone if they play hockey? By the way, it has nothing to do with hockey. I'll give you a clue. Teamwork. What else? Loyalty, exactly. So here's a couple things about hockey players. And most of you know this because you've probably got kids that play or grandkids or whatever. And again, you can sub in soccer or travel this or travel that. But I do think hockey, because of the integrity of hockey players, is at the top. That's why I asked the question. By the way, we have a company hockey team that skates every Friday night at the Onyx. And we have 14 employees that play, including myself, and about 6 customers. And we're on our 26th year of doing that. Jeff Upward plays with us, only when we need goals. It's a true story, right, Jeff? I mean, I'm being serious. We have a company hockey team. We play every Friday night. They don't want us to say that because the crowds there are like really hard to get in. But why would I ask if you play hockey? Let me ask you a question, a couple questions. So, does anyone here have a son or grandson that's played hockey? Okay. So, what do you do on a typical hockey situation? Where do you play? All over, right? Okay. So, and the young person has to get a ride to the game, right? So you're taking them to the game, or the mom's taking them to the game. So now you're in the car with that person for an hour or two each way to the rink, right? So you're getting some one-on-one quality time with the person, right? Travel hockey, you go away to tournaments, right? What happens when you go to a tournament? You drive them to a tournament. You get a hotel room with them. In my case, I would split up because we had multiple things going on. So I'd take my son or daughter, and I'd spend the weekend with them, one-on-one, family time. We also had a rule when I coached that I would take their cell phones, if they had them. Back earlier, they didn't. We'd put them in a shoebox, and there'd be no cell phones for the weekend. So it was all about relationships and hanging out and family time and friends time. And just as another sidebar, and I ask this question a lot, when's the last time you heard of a hockey player getting in trouble? Professional hockey player. Doesn't happen very often, right? Who can tell me the last professional hockey player that got in trouble? Bob Probert. I was hoping that would be the answer, because that's usually what I get. Do you know how long ago that was? 15 years. That's a perfect answer. So 15 years ago, a hockey player got in trouble. Now, do football players get in trouble? Baseball, basketball, they're beating wives, they're taking drugs, it's craziness. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But that's why I asked someone if they play hockey, because it's way bigger than hockey. And by the way, we have women that work for us that play hockey. So, again, a question I ask, 17 years average working time. By the way, one other thing I forgot to mention, our company in 101 years has never been involved in a lawsuit, 0. What do you think the second question is I ask? If you think the first one was wild, wait till you get to the third one.
When did you last talk to your mother?
That's a good one. I might have to add that number 4. My mother's here, see? No, think way outside the box. You can't answer, Jeff. You probably know the answer. I asked them, do you hunt? Do you hunt? Why do I ask that? It has nothing to do with hunting. Why do I ask that question? Who hunts here? Who do you hunt with? Your family. Right. And your friends. Right? And what do you do when you go hunting? You don't have to tell us all what you do, but.
Well, we have a lot of tell stories, and when we were up north, that was played cards, and one of the guys says you got to play by Elmira rules. Whatever it is, it's Elmira rule. And this is kind of that we would do, and then we would figure out who was the best cook. I ended up being a cook, and one of mine in the west of the dishes, and it was teamwork. And when you go out in the woods, you make sure you're all got the right equipment to go out there with. Sometimes you drive your old station wagon out there with a cook stove in the back and warm up coffee and take a break. Really enjoy what the outside is. You got it here, that's just a plus.
That's a perfect answer right there. Thank you. You saved me half my program, but that's right on. So has almost nothing to do with hunting. It's about hanging out with your friends and family, having a good time, building a relationship, and having fun. And we have guys at our camp. By the way, I hunt with, now if you go back in time, it would have been my dad, both my sons, my cousin, my two best friends, two employees at work, and I could go on and on. That's who we hunt with. And you know the group, Roger Dimoffs, and some of the guys never took a gun. Just saying. Was very little about hunting. You know, out of 10 guys up there, we might shoot 2 deer. Wasn't about shooting deer. It's about relationships. So what do you think the third question after that would be? This is where it gets really good. No one ever guesses this. No. No, not even close. So the third question that I ask is, have you seen the movie Saving Private Ryan? Who's seen the movie in here? Raise your hand if you've seen it. Okay, why would I ask that question? It's a deep movie. It's a hard movie to watch. It is. It's violent. It's hard to watch.
One mission in his life to do is to find that guy.
You know what? You could start traveling with me. He's good. That's very good. So the answer is, first of all, how many veterans do we have in the room? Thank you for your service. It's awesome. That movie was about, if you really think about it, that was about a group of guys that went through hell landing on the beach, that saw most of their buddies killed, that were then asked to go through enemy territory to a place they had no idea where they were going, to find a guy they did not know who they thought was all dead. Right? That's what the movie is about. Right? Remember halfway through, they're looking through dog tags, because they're sure the guy's dead. Let's find this dog tag so we can get the hell out of here, right? And they all did it. And by the way, they all knew they were going to die. 2 guys lived out of that group. Everyone else died. They did save Private Ryan, but everyone died in that group but 2 people. So, to me, if you can get that kind of commitment and teamwork again and relationship, that's pretty incredible. So who knows, and by the way, that movie was best movie, best actor, best director, best everything. Really hard movie to watch. In fact, there's parts of it. I've seen that movie probably, I could tell you word by word of that movie. I've seen it 50 times, maybe more. Parts of it I turn off, I can't watch. The beginning's very difficult, a few other parts in there. But there's some parts in there that are so meaningful, I watch it over and over. And I have people watch it, I have our employees watch it. Of course, the kids now, because I'm going to ask you this next question, they cheat, and they go on their phone and find the answer. But I ask them all, what's the last 2 words that Tom Hanks says in the movie as he's dying on the bridge? No one ever gets this. No one ever knows this. But think about this. How does the movie start? Where does the movie start? Cemetery. Not at the beach in Normandy. Most people think that. It starts in the cemetery. Where does the movie end? Cemetery. Right. Because he's asking his wife and family, was I a good man? Did I lead a good life? Right? And he's doing that because the last 2 words that Tom Hanks says to him in the movie. Again, I don't usually tell groups. I make them go, in theory, watch the movie. But again, the kids cheat and go to their phone. They walk back in and go, I know what he did. I go, you cheated. Earn this. And he dies. Earn this. So when someone comes to work for me, I want them to earn it. There's not a free ride at Rewold Sons or Royal Park Hotel or the museum, or we could go on and on. I spoke at OPC Friday, did the same talk. There's no free rides at OPC. You have to earn it when you come in. And if you earn it and you're treated well, good things will happen. The company will do well, you'll be rewarded. It's a good situation. But it's really important to do that, in my mind. Training is another thing that we work on at Rewold really hard. So And everybody says that, and quite frankly, we don't train properly there. Training is a really, really hard thing to do because you get really, really busy, and if you're busy, you don't have time to train, right? If you're not really busy, you're cutting costs, and you don't want to spend money on training. But training is really, really critical. So we try to go the extra mile. We had an employee, just a quick story, that we had an employee recently. She's still with us, so I won't mention names. But we put her in a position, we got busy and moved her up without training her and put her in some positions where she wasn't qualified to be. And guess what happened? Didn't go very well. We had problems. And the owner came to me upset. She came to me upset, crying. And I told them, I said, that's my fault. That's not her fault. I put her in a position she was not able to succeed. We didn't train her right, and I didn't give her the backup. That's my fault. So we made some changes. We've redone some things with her. We're retraining. We're putting her in a better position. She's doing really well now. But the point is, you have to train people. Communication is key. As I started off, I talked about all the great things in Rochester, and it makes me angry when people come into town and start bitching. Sorry, I'm going to keep it PG, Jeff. But, you get new people that come into town, which is great, but then they start telling us how everything should be and how bad everything is and blah, blah, blah. And I have to tell them, and I've done this in council meetings in front of people, and said, if it's so bad, why did you come here? I don't understand it. Another thing I left off of our great things, we have a great school system here. We're lucky. Rochester Schools is awesome. So, to me, communication is really important, and I have a couple sayings that I like to use and share. On training. Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they won't. Right? I'm a big sports guy. I want to coach my people up. If I've got people that are coachable, I want to coach them up. If they're not coachable, I want them to go work at the Marriott. Really. Go work for my competitor. I don't want bad people. I don't want people that don't want to work. Doesn't work. Won't work for me. Go work at my competitor. I've told a lot of people that. You should go work at our competitor because you apparently don't like it here and you think it's really good somewhere else. See how that works for you. Another thing I like to do and say, it's one of my favorites. Stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution. Right? How many times have you been to a party where you get caught in the corner, you've got some friend or some friend of a friend comes up and all they're doing is bitching and moaning and you can't get out of there quick enough, right? Who wants to be around negative people? I don't. I want to have a culture where people want to, do things the right way. So to me, again, it comes back to coaching. Relationships, right? The first thing I talked about. Culture. Friendships fall into that. A lot of people here. Dave French helped me years and years ago. He was one of the best marketing people that I've ever been around. And I remember you came in, you worked at a competitor, took the time and came in and helped coach our team. We were in a big presentation. You remember that? At our office? Say yes. Okay, say yes. Well, you did it. You came in, you were working at Barton Mallow at that point. You brought a team in, we were going for a big job, we were inexperienced, and he came in and helped us, helped the competitor get ready for an interview, which I think we got. I never forgot that. That was pretty cool. Learned a lot of good stuff. If I would have been smarter, I'd be able to retire as early as you did. So the last thing I'll leave you with, and then we can have some questions. This is another one of my favorites. I don't know if you can read that back there. So that says 10 things that require zero talent. 10 things that require zero talent. You're wondering if I have that memorized, aren't you? I don't. So, Ed, help me put this together. So 10 things, I know most of them, I just don't have the order. It doesn't really matter on the order. But 10 things that require zero talent. 1, being on time. 2, work ethic. 3, effort. 0 talent. 4, energy. 5, body language. 6, passion. Goes back to what I said, right? Earn this. 7, doing something extra. 8, being prepared. 9, being coachable. And 10, attitude. Right? Isn't that true? Yeah, honesty, that's a great, yeah, I could add 11. You're good. So I'm just going to read one other thing and then, you're doing good. I'm going to read you one of my other favorite things. I have some of these you can take if you want to, because I always steal stuff from other people when they're speaking good marketing stuff and take it and use it. I should say borrow. So here's my definition of attitude. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people might think of you. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play by the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. So I'll leave you with that. We can have questions if you want. I don't know if I'm ahead of time, behind time. So we have some questions.
Project of your whole career that you kind of, whether it was very early in your career, or it was a learning experience, or whether it's just a project that you really enjoyed.
Can you guys hear what the question? So the question is favorite project. So yeah, I got a few, and that's a great question. So one was the pine knob that we did for the reasons I said. To work, back then I was a young guy, little Rochester, Michigan, and I'm doing pine knob for Bill Davison. Are you kidding me? So yeah, that was pretty cool. Another one is the dorm. I showed a lot of them, but the dorm we did at OU was another big jump for us. It was a huge project. It was a very difficult project. It had a very tight time frame. We actually started it without drawings, finished it ahead of schedule, and under budget, gave the university money back. So that was pretty cool as well. My favorite story was we were doing we didn't build the Palace of Auburn Hills, but we did all the work there once it was built. So both the big glass additions you saw on the back of it, if you remember those. The first one we did was called the West Entrance, which was a 6-story addition where all the executive offices went on the top, and it went where the main entrance to the palace is where we built on, and we had to keep it open year-round. So we actually built a tunnel to get people through, and then built the building over this and took the tunnel down afterwards. And I remember that I had a meeting with Bill Davison one day, which was not very often that he would come to meetings, so I knew when he came, he had my full attention. And I went to Western, so I wasn't that strong in math, but He told me, he came in and he wanted to make a point to me, so he said, we do 200 events here a year. We have 20,000 seats in the arena. The average ticket price is $50 a seat. I cannot afford to miss one event here. Do the math on what that will cost me, and you don't want to be that guy. What is that math, Jeff? 200 times 20,000 times 50. I knew it was higher than I wanted to get involved in, so luckily that job went really well. And then they hired us to do the North Edition on the other side, which is the restaurants, the glass restaurants and that. We, after that, put scoreboards in and seating and suites. We did probably $75 million worth of work at the Palace over the time frame there. Interesting story, we put a scoreboard in there about 2 years before Tom Goer sold it and moved to Detroit. And the scoreboard we put in was massive if you ever went in there. We had 7 cranes inside the Palace putting this scoreboard up. So probably spent $15 million he did, and 2 years later moved to Detroit. And didn't take it with him. No, you weren't getting that out of there, I don't think. So, yes?
What about the project that maybe you wanted but didn't get?
Project that we wanted that we didn't get. Actually, there's been a lot of those, to be honest, because it's a competitive world. And it used to bother me a lot when we'd bid on something and not get it. And you have to get of the mindset that once it's done, it's behind you. Because one thing I don't like to do, again, with the negative people is I don't look backwards. I look forwards. If you start looking backwards, you just get, it'll drive you crazy. Been lots. I don't know if there's been any one particular one. One that we just bid that we didn't get that was a little, the Illiches called us, which is the hockey family in Detroit. Most of you would know that. And we've not done any work with them, so it was a potential really good new account for us, and we bid on a big project for them. It was like $50 million, and thought we had a good chance to get it, did not get it. So recently that was one. Mostly because we wanted to kind of get our foot in the door there. Yeah.
I had a chance to give this presentation to the kids at the high state of Rochester, I guess it's Rochester, in the construction program.
Would I?
Have you ever?
No. No. I would though. I mean, it's interesting. I've started doing this not that long ago, and the response I have has been huge. I've gotten, like I said, I did OPC Friday. That was a result of, I did one 2 weeks earlier at the Royal Park Hotel, and OPC heard about it and called me, and then I've had about 2 more calls since then. So I like doing it. It's easy. I don't have to memorize it, because it's like I tell people, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said, right? So it's just easy for me to get up here, and most people, like, well, they don't believe, like when my HR girl heard me ask those questions, she literally said, pulled me out of the room, said, you can't ask that question. I said, why? Why can't I ask that question? Then she came back in and I said, just listen to the end of it. And we got all the way through. She goes, I can't believe that. That makes a lot of sense. Well, it's just telling the truth. It sounds weird when you say Private Ryan, but you get why I asked that now, right? The end of it is earn it. I want someone that comes in to get a job to know that there's no free rides. And if you work hard, we'll treat you well. If you don't, I want you to go work for my competitor. Makes sense to me.
Are you scheduled anywhere in the near future to give us the same talk?
I am giving another one at the Royal Park on tomorrow. Yeah, I should start charging for this. I don't know what it would be worth. Probably not much, but it's fun. People have fun. They get it. You know, older people is cool because they really get it. Younger people, it makes them think, so I like that. You know, I think we have to have kids that want to earn it, you know. That's the ones you want to hire.
After all these years and experience, is there anything that you find still frustrating that you can't find a solution to?
How long you got?
No, something that stands out that you just can't get your arms around. And in follow-up to that, do you pray at work?
So the two questions there, what's frustrating and do we pray at work, is that right? We don't pray at work as a team, nothing organized that would probably be frowned on. I pray at work every day, and I think a lot of our people do. But it's hard to do some of that stuff in today's world, which is a problem. And that really would lead into what I'm frustrated with, is some of the stuff that's going on in the world today. And not to get political about it, because it's not political to me, it's right or wrong, right? It's either right or wrong. It's not a Democrat, Republican thing, it's right or wrong. But today, I'm worried that the way, and a lot of our young people have that they grow up, you know, angry, feeling like they're entitled, and if one side wants black, the other one automatically wants white. And to me, there's a lot of gray in the world. You know, it shouldn't be black and white. It should be, again, is it right or wrong? I think we've got a lot of work to do with our young people. It worries me. But I suppose people in the 20s worried about rock and roll and all that stuff, right? And we turned out okay, so. Yeah, work ethic is really why I turned out okay. And my mom was part of that, my dad. There was no free rides with my mom and dad, believe me. If you knew my dad. Which was awesome. I mean, short-term pain, long-term gain. And today everyone wants instant gratification, right? That's why when I do these road trips, when I was coaching, I'd tell them, put your cell phones in the shoebox. We're not going to, I think it's rude when I'm talking to you and you're on your cell phone. That tells me that you don't care what I'm saying sitting right here. You care more about what someone's doing that you probably don't even know on Facebook in Sheboygan or something. It's crazy. Yeah.
What's the favorite part of your new headquarters?
Our new headquarters is awesome. If you haven't seen it, come down. I'll invite everybody to just come in and grab a cup of coffee. I'm not going to tell you we'll get a personal tour to you, but it's a really cool building. Lots of cool things. Number one, we took a contaminated site or a brownfield and took something that was unbuildable and created a tax base for the city and created jobs. So we're pretty happy with that. The city's happy, the county's happy, because that would have been an empty site forever with nothing. Number two, my goal was to build that building as close to the river as humanly possible, and it took a lot of energy to get it that way, but when you come see our building, it is right on the river. In fact, we have balconies in the back that I think we can fish off of, literally, and we will this spring. And our upper balcony, mezzanine, with the view of Rochester is incredible. Really a cool view from up there. It is. Yeah, her comment was it's modern. You know, it's interesting because this planning commission questioned us on that and said, well, you need to match what is in the area. I said, really? What do you want me to match? We have a white contemporary building behind us. We have a Tudor European building across the river. Next to us we have a aluminum sided building, and in front of us we have a National Historic building. What do you want me to match? I didn't want to be match. I wanted to be what we call the cool factor or the fun factor at our office. If you come inside, it's very homey. Yes?
What is the biggest change you've seen over the years?
I don't know, Mom, you could answer that better. What's the biggest change in the area over the years?
More and more people.
More traffic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've gotten bigger. I don't think big or, you know, I'm not one, again, I have a different mentality than most. I'm always looking forward. I always try to be positive. So to me, for a town to be successful, you need traffic. You really do. If you don't have traffic, your town's not going to work, right? And so I don't mind traffic. Now, I'm not going to sit in I-75 for 20 minutes like they do, stand still going to Detroit. No, that's not me. But if I have to wait 3 minutes in Rochester, I'm okay with that.
Main Street makeover. That's a big project.
Yeah. Our downtown is awesome. Like I said, I'm a proponent, and when I tell people this, the stuff that we have in Rochester, is nowhere else in the world, I don't think. I mean, tell me a city that has, first of all, you have 4 professional sports teams. Start with that. Not many cities have that. I know that's Detroit, but I mean, we can use it. You have 2 outside amphitheaters, Pine Knob, Meadowbrook. You have 2 phenomenal universities. You have a great hospital. You have a great hockey rink. You have a great OPC. You have, I think, maybe the best library in the state. And I could go on and on and on. Look at the restaurants you have, the park system we have. You got the Paint Creek, designated trout stream. You know, you can get to the Great Lakes in 35 minutes if you want a boat. I mean, I know our winters are tough. March is a tough month, but I'll take this over anywhere around, and I've traveled a fair amount. I mean, go to Florida right now, 95 and humid. And I think we're lucky.
What are your plans, or what are the plans for the parking area behind your new building now that's all open? Are there plans for that area?
It's a great question, yes. The question is the empty corner lot that we own, what are our plans? So, I don't know how much of this is public knowledge, but what the hell. So I've been working with the city trying to do, if any of you remember the old Legacy project that was floated out years ago there, that didn't happen. And part of the reason that didn't happen is it was a good idea. It was just the wrong time, the wrong people, and it got too big. They got that into a $40 or $50 million project, and there's just no way that we could make that happen. I say we, the community. So we're trying to revitalize that a little bit, something that would be called like a full-time market square inside. If you've been to Flint has a really, really cool full-time year-round market. If you haven't been there, it's something fun to do. Go up and go through that. It's awesome. It's only open 3 days a week, so make sure you call. But so we're trying to do, my vision is to do something there that would have some type of a full-time market. It's got to have the right combination. It can't be a mom and pop store that's not going to be open half the time, which is a little bit of our problem on Main Street, in my opinion. But some cool things that, again, I call it the fun factor, which is going to draw people in. And I'd like to have some sort of general entertainment center connected with it, so that maybe you had Paint Creek Center for Arts using this entertainment on a Monday night, and OPC using it on a Tuesday night, and then on a Thursday night you have a comedian, and on a Friday night you have a band, and on a Saturday night you had whatever. So people would come to town with something to do, and then they'd go eat, drink, shop before or after that. Be a combination enclosed and open with like a covered, think of it as Eastern Market in Detroit with a covered area that went down to the river that connected to the bike paths. So now you've got bike paths. People don't realize how many people use our bike paths. I mean, spring and summer, I don't know how many go by in a day, but it's thousands. It's not 50 people, it's thousands. So if you could get those people coming in to our town as a destination to eat, drink, shop, you know, along with cars and whatever, I think that's the one thing we're missing is something to do. You know, our shopping is okay. It's not the greatest, and it's not open all that much. I mean, if you go downtown on a weekend or a night, a lot of those stores are not open. So we're working on that. You have any ideas? Come see me.
There was talk at the time about reopening of the movie theater, maybe theater mat. Is it anything like that ever going to happen?
Rod's a good friend of mine, Rod Wilson. He and I have worked on that, more him than me. He's worked on that for a long time. My personal opinion, not Rod's, these are not Rod's words, that will never happen. And I say that because of this. One of the things that I did on looking at this empty piece of property is I've tried to get a movie theater come back into town, so I went to the big movie theaters. And I thought if we did that like 2 levels where it was maybe upstairs with retail below or something, that'd be cool. And they just laughed at me and said, unless you have room for 10 theaters, there's no success for a single theater.
The Redford Theater says well will be open.
I'm sorry?
Redford Theater, which is
Probably.
get to from here, so I think you have a
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them around. Romeo has still a small theater. Oxford has a small one we go to. I think, even Oxford's got 7 theaters in there, 6 or 7 or something. I'm not saying it can't work, but to try to build new and compete with the big box theaters, that's a tough putt, I think. Yeah.
So what's the best advice your father gave you? And what do you think you'll give your kids?
Well, the best advice that he gave me in so many words goes back to the earn it, which is the same thing that I've done with my kids. I mean, if they were here, and I should have brought one of them, I should bring them with me. They've heard this some, but not the full thing that I do. I'll just tell you a funny story. So we have a fishing camp up in Canada that we fly into a couple times a year, and it's usually my kids that are with me, and I'll have them bring a kid or two, and it's just a hoot to take kids up there, because first thing I love about there's no cell service. So I don't take their cell phones, and they think, oh, Dad's lightening up. And I go, no, take your phones. That'd be great. Bring them. I can't get my phone to work. I go, oh, darn. But so up there, we have, there's no power, there's no electricity, there's no running water. We have a one-holer out back. And most of what we do is sit around the campfire and hang out and eat and drink and tell stories and whatever. We fish, but honestly, we don't fish that much when we're up there. Don't tell my wife that, but we don't. Actually, she's been. But many times we've had this story. So this year, or a couple years ago, I went out to the one-holer, and I'm in there, and I look on the wall, and one of the kids is carved in there, "Earn this," and put the year on it. I thought that was pretty cool. I said, it's getting through. There is hope. It's still there. Any other questions?
Brownfield, what does that mean, what you have to do to the brownfield?
Brownfield basically means you have a contaminated site that in order to put anything on it, you have to clean it up. And you get involved with every government agency you can think of, and it is a nightmare. It took us, I forget what year we bought the mill building, but it was, I think, about 22 years to get through the brownfield to do our building. 22 years. And my dad worked on it for 15, and if you knew my dad, if he couldn't get it there. But one of the reasons we got it was Mike Bishop, who was our old state rep. He got involved and brought ITT who moved out of state to California, which was a problem because they were a big company and they lost all ties with Michigan. They could care less about that property. And Mike, who was a good friend, I think, to Rochester and me, but more importantly to the greater area, he called them to Washington. They met in his office, and he got the DEQ involved and finally got it moving, which is the only reason we got that in there. And sometimes you can get grants and public money, but it's complicated. The corner lot is cleaned. We did it when we did the rest of the property. Cleaned is the wrong. It's controlled. We'll never clean what's there, because it's deep down, it's liquids. But we've got the barriers and the vapor barriers and the walls and the monitors and all that stuff. Quite honestly, a lot of that is, in my mind, just governmental red tape BS that they put you through. But it is, I mean, it's not always the case. In the case of our thing there, to have liquids that are 20 feet down below the surface, I mean, what's going to happen there, contamination-wise? Yeah, I mean, you could sink a well, but...
Frank, I was trying to think about what you would think is the biggest challenge facing your company or construction companies in the short term and the next 100 years. And the other question to that would be, we hear how quickly, since it's a cyclical business, when we went through the last downturn, people either go out of business or leave the state, skilled trades, contractors, subcontractors. And I just can't imagine when it ramps back up again, which it has done over the last 4, 5, 6 years, how contractors like yourself can get jobs done in a timely fashion with very little labor and
fewer skilled trades to come on your projects and get it done.
Yeah, his question was just lack of help and labor and the ups and downs in construction. That's a very valid point, and it is one of the biggest challenges now. There's a big shortage in skilled labor in Michigan because everybody either left the state or now, which might answer one of your other questions. One of my concerns is our college system is broke from the standpoint of every person thinks they need to go to college, and we have a lot of people in college that I don't think need to be there, and we need those people to go into the workforce. So I think we're starting to do a better job of letting them know and training them. It goes back to training, right? So we get them into these different schools to train them like carpenters and, you know, but if you go to a graduation party, think about the last graduation party you went to where kids in the corner going, I want to be a plumber. That ain't happening. Nothing. And by the way, plumbers and carpenters and electricians probably make between $80,000 and $120,000 a year right now. And the variance is, again, depends how much they work. But if they're working overtime, which a lot of them are now, they can make well over $100,000. And the other downside of it is, and again, I'm all about college, and we've got Oakland people here and a great college, but when you have people that shouldn't be in college that go to college, to me, what they do is build up a big loan that they have interest on. They get out of college, they can't get a job, and they can't pay their loan off. And even if they get a job, it's not paying them enough to pay their loan off. It's a problem. I've got a nephew right now that has a law degree, and he's got a $160,000 college loan. It's crazy. How's he going to get out from that? It's not going to happen. So I think those are some things that we're facing. I think when we have a downturn, you know, it almost is we could use a little downturn in construction to get more leveled off, because we've been working at a feverish pace the last few years. And I think when we have a downturn, the workforce will catch up a little bit, I hope. But you don't want too big like we had. That was a horrible one we had 5 or 6 years ago. That was not a depression, that was a recession in my mind. Or not a recession, a depression. Especially in Detroit with auto. I mean, we had it worse than any place in the United States. Yes, sir.
I think that you said the last thing that you talked about, I couldn't remember, you said the 10 things that you don't need something for.
I'll get you a copy of that if you want. I'll get you a copy of what I did. Yeah, there's 10 things that require 0 talent. Yeah. And it's being on time, ethic, effort, energy, body language, passion, doing something extra, being prepared, being coachable, and again, attitude. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this.